Okay, everybody, I think that this is up and running now. So let me go ahead and make sure that it looks good on YouTube. Can I do a sound check on YouTube and make sure that we're getting sound and audio? And then we will kick off the presentation. Okay, looks like we have sound. Awesome. I'm going to pass the presentation over to Miriam O'Sullivan. Thanks for joining us, Miriam, and sorry about the late start here, everybody, but we will let her have it and go right ahead here. So there you go, Miriam. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great, thank you very much. Hello everyone, I'm here in the picturesque town of Killarney, County Kerry in Ireland. My session is titled Empowering People with Disabilities Through Evidence-Based Interventions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a quick run through what I will cover in this session with you. So first of all, I will kick off with giving you a background to myself. Then I will have a look at what it means to have evidence-based interventions. Then we will have a look at some of the low and medium assistive technologies. We will then look at the application of medium category assistive technology with people with disability. Secondly, we will look at using an evidence-based approach to interventions using mobile devices and apps specifically. And then finally, we will have a look at some of the benefits of using an evidence-based approach to this type of intervention. So just a bit of background on myself. So like I said, I'm based here in County Kerry in Ireland. I have been studying in the disability sector for the past 9 years. I have been working as a social care worker for just about 5 years now. In relation to my education, I have 2 Bachelor of Arts, ordinary and honours level in social care. And most recently, I have completed a Master of Arts by Research, which was titled An Exploration of the Effectiveness of the Use of Communication Apps Through Mobile Devices on Children with Autism Spectrum Disorders. So what we did during that Master's was I developed a communication app with 10 children with autism spectrum disorders, and we utilized the universal design process for that as well. In relation to my practice, I have been working with adults and children with varying levels of physical and intellectual disabilities. I have worked in residential day and respite services. I have also been a home tutor in relation to applied behaviour analysis programs, and I have worked with a number of children with ASD on those as well. I have also managed some residential services for people with disabilities, and most recently I have commenced my own business where I am working as an AAC consultant here in Ireland. So just to have a look at evidence-based interventions and what we mean by evidence-based. Looking at evidence-based interventions, we mean that these interventions are proven effective as a result of outcome evaluations. So it's a program that is scientifically researched. We can see the effectiveness of treatments or programs, and we can see the outcomes for people who are engaging in those programs. A lot of our assistive technologies are now recognized as evidence-based interventions as well. So some of the evidence-based interventions involving assistive technology include a range of assistive technologies from low to high. So we are familiar with our low assistive technologies. They are technologies that do not require a lot of financial investment, and they do not require a power source. Our higher assistive technologies then are like our Dynabox. So our medium category is a pretty new category that has recently been developed within the literature. And I suppose it focuses very much on the mobile devices and the apps, simply because these types of technologies are quite affordable to people. They are very accessible within all of our communities. However, they do require a power source. So the mobile devices and apps are overlapping in relation to characteristics with regards low and high categorization of assistive technology. So we've kind of created a medium there, which our mobile devices and our apps fall into. So again, just to remind ourselves of low assistive technologies, they are examples given are our paper-based system, which is like our picture exchange communication system, signs, gestures, diaries, which I could not live without my diary. I could not function. So they're a very accessible form of AT for all of us. Schedules, which are used on a daily basis, and also, I suppose, one of the latest trends in wider society, but not so much for ourselves, is fidget cubes and fidget spinners. So they would all be deemed as your low assistive technologies for people. The medium assistive technologies then are the tablets, the iPads, the iPods, the iPhone, smartphones, and all of our apps. So for the remainder of this presentation, I will be focusing more on the mobile devices and apps in particular for people with disabilities. So like Catherine said earlier, she set me up very well for this session actually. There is no one size fits all in relation to using mobile devices and apps for people. This type of assistive technology is not a cure. It is simply a tool that when used using an evidence-based approach, it can be very effective and efficient for people with disabilities. They can be very empowering devices and they can create many, many benefits for people, but they need to be used correctly. They need to be under the supervision of a qualified professional. And like Catherine had said earlier, we cannot just hand a device and an app to someone and expect them to be absolutely fine or functioning as per that app and device, as per the function of that independently. We need to work with people and teach them the skill. So looking at an evidence-based approach to utilizing mobile devices and apps, there are three key aspects that I utilize every day when I'm supporting people with disabilities in these interventions. The first step is the assessment process. Again, this all has to be evidence-based. So I utilize 2 evidence-based assessments before making any recommendations for people. So the first one is the mobile device assessment. So this is looking at the type of platform that is going to best meet the needs of the person that we are supporting. So is it Android? Is it Apple? What size does the person need? Do they need other AT equipment to go with that? So do they need the stylus? Do they need the durable cover? All of that is assessed within the mobile device assessment. The second stage then, if we deem that a person is suitable for using a mobile device, some people aren't, we all need to accept that and understand that. Some people do not want to use mobile devices and they're just simply not compatible to this type of technology that really needs to be respected within our practice. So if the person is deemed to be suitable for a mobile device, the next step is the app assessment. A lot of parents would come to me and say that they would like their child to be able to communicate, to be able to dress themselves, and maybe be able to complete a scheduled task independently. So the first thing I would say to them is to pick one area that they want to concentrate on. In the majority, parents pick communication. So I focus on an assessment for communication apps in particular, if that's what they choose. Again, this assessment is evidence-based. It's looking at the strengths of a person, and this is really key to success. Looking at someone's strengths and feature matching them to an app that is currently available. There is a lot of apps, particularly here in Ireland. We're very much behind in relation to this. However, I'm hoping that in a number of months and years, we will follow the path of what you've created there in the States of assessing people for the use of apps. In Ireland, there's still the approach of giving somebody an iPad and an app, and that they will be fine and they will be able to use it. The selection of apps is very ad hoc at present here in Ireland. Again, we're chipping away at people, trying to get them to come round to the approach of evidence and using the assessments and a strengths-based approach to supporting people who require AAC. So like I said, the app assessment is based on the person's strengths, and we then feature match them to an app that best meets their need at that time. Once that is completed, then the training aspect is the next aspect to be addressed. Again, this is developing the foundation for the parents and professionals that are supporting the AAC user. Research has shown that parents and professionals are actually a barrier to success for AAC users. People do not feel confident or competent in teaching somebody the skill of using their mobile device or app. So the training is really key for setting up that AAC user for success. The third aspect to this then is the implementation process. And this is the on-the-ground teaching skills with the user. So you can imagine that if our parents and professionals don't feel competent and confident with using the mobile device and app, then we're automatically setting the person up for failure in relation to the implementation process. Again, this implementation process needs to be evidence-based. The skill needs to be taught. We need to take that time to teach the person the purpose of their device and the function of their app, and to get them to use it for that specific purpose, be it communication or education. They need to identify that and be able to manage it independently. Again, all of this process should be overlooked or overseen by a suitably qualified professional who does use an evidence-based approach to this again. So why would we use an evidence-based intervention with an AAC user? The first aspect to look at here is safeguarding. We need to protect the well-being of the person before we start implementing. Again, evidence is key for this. If we have evidence to back up an intervention, there is hope for this person to be able to utilize this intervention very effectively within their day-to-day life. The second aspect is consistency. So if we are using an evidence-based approach, everybody within that circle of support, your parents, your teachers, your special needs assistants, your occupational therapists, your speech and language therapists, everybody that engages with this person in relation to their AAC device and app engages in the exact same way, provides consistency for the AAC learner, which then aids in them learning the purpose and function of their device and their app. The third aspect is transparency. So again, using an evidence-based approach to an intervention is key when we are engaging with multidisciplinary teams. So we can stand over our intervention and we can tell people what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it in this specific way. The next aspect is tracking and evaluation. In order to be able to see someone's progress, we need to be able to measure it, track it, and evaluate it. Again, if we're using an evidence-based approach, like our data sheets, we can absolutely do that, and we can record very accurately a person's progress in relation to an intervention. The final aspect to that then is family and professional support. So again, like I said, families and professionals can be a barrier to the implementation of an intervention. This is not intentional by any means, but there is an apprehension from people. So creating that evidence base allows for your training, allows for the consistency in delivery for the AAC user, and it brings it all together for that person and supports that AAC user as much as possible. So how do we apply mobile devices and apps with people with disabilities, and what function do they have? So as an AAC consultant, I support people with disabilities in relation to communication, education, social skills, and life skills. So when we're looking at our communication apps, we are looking at all 7 categories. Some of the categories include text-to-speech, grid-based, and your symbol-based apps. So again, we're going back to the feature matching there and selecting for the needs of that person. Education, there are hundreds and hundreds of apps available in relation to education, 2 of which I've listed here are just your literacy and your numeracy. We can use mobile devices and apps to reinforce absolutely any skill that we have in relation to education. Again, they need to be used correctly and utilised in an evidence-based approach, and they need to be built into the curriculum in a meaningful way for people. Looking at our cause and effect, our sequencing, all of those tasks can be reinforced using mobile devices and apps within the classroom. Skills, we would do a lot of work with children in particular in relation to turn-taking, conversation skills, and also emotion and recognizing emotion in relation to that as well. And then the final category is life. It's a very broad category. I would support people using mobile devices and apps for the purposes of employment. Some people may have difficulty with time management. They may need a simple scheduling or diary app that supports them to execute their morning routine in a time-efficient manner that supports them to be at their place of employment on time and ready for work. Other people would use it for particular tasks during their employment, and their device would support them in that. Other life skills that would be developed through mobile devices and apps would be intimate care tasks. So teaching somebody how to use the toilet independently, how to dress independently, how to brush their teeth and brush their hair independently. We can create programs for all of that. Again, they need to be evidenced, and it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. We can also look at some daily tasks in relation to supporting people with disabilities. Some of the tasks that we would support them in is maybe making a cup of tea, doing their shopping, all of those kind of things. So engaging with anyone within their community, we would use mobile devices and apps for that person. So what are the benefits of using mobile devices and apps with people with disabilities? There are in particular 5 benefits that a person may experience as a result of utilising mobile devices and apps. Some people experience all 5 benefits, others may experience 1, 2, 3, or 4. But everybody using a mobile device and app should experience at least one of these. So just take a look at communication. When we are looking at mobile devices and apps, we focus particularly on creating a method of functional communication for people. So this is looking at real life exchange and communication for people with disabilities. We're also looking at spontaneous communication, and this is expressing a person's needs, wants, and in particular, sharing information. So people are very motivated to express their needs and wants. However, getting people to the next stage of sharing information, commenting and questioning is the most difficult part of an intervention. And this is the one that requires the most support for the person. As a result of utilising a mobile device and app for the purpose of communication, we also see the development of language acquisition. So this is perceiving, producing and using words to understand and communicate. In particular, we see instances of increased spontaneous communication. This can be attributed to the device itself and due to I suppose people with disability maybe preferring this method of communication, and also the fact that they can independently manage their own communication vocabulary. And then as a result of this increased spontaneous communication, we also see an increase in verbal abilities. In the majority, this is attributed to the voice output feature that is available on many of the apps that are on the app stores. Now, again, like Catherine was saying earlier, one of the myths around this is that having a voice output on an app hinders a person's verbal abilities and their development of speech. This is not true at all. In fact, research has completely debunked this, and research actually shows that a voice output feature within an app actually increases verbal abilities. This can be attributed to the consistency of the device. As humans, we're very inconsistent in relation to our response. So if we're engaging with the person with a disability, we're not always providing that verbal output to them. So they're not hearing those words and they're not engaging with them, whereas the device consistently produces the verbalization of that word or phrase, and people are exposed to it, and as a result, we have those increased verbal abilities. So just to look at one of our case studies, this is Billy. Billy is 6 years old and he has a diagnosis of autism. He is nonverbal and he did engage in behaviours that challenge. So he would hit himself, his mom, and also the professionals that were supporting him. So we commenced using mobile device and communication app with Billy, and we instantly saw progress from him in relation to his communication. So after approximately 2 weeks, we saw the verbalization of needs and wants. We also realized that Billy had commenced independently managing his own vocabulary. He had complete control over his device, and he utilized the camera feature within his device to take his own pictures and develop and manage his own vocabulary from that. So our second benefit from using mobile devices and apps is independence. And we see increased independence from people with disabilities in the home, school, and community. Again, this is back to managing and developing their own vocabulary. As a result of taking this control and creating this independence, they're more motivated to communicate with those around them. And just to compare to our traditional or low-tech assistive technology solutions, when we transition from the likes of our picture exchange communication folders onto an app, content preparation was reduced by 70% for parents and professionals. So it takes a huge burden off of parents and professionals to have the vocabulary available for AAC users. But it also takes away the anxiety for parents and professionals, because in the past they would have had to preempt what people may need in their vocabulary set. However, we can reduce that anxiety completely by giving the AAC user complete control over their own device. So they can utilize the camera camera within their own device, and they can also utilize good old Google to get whatever images they may need to express their needs, wants, questions, concerns, etc. when they're communicating with people around them and also people within their wider community. As a result of mobile devices being such a readily available product within the wider community, you will actually find that people are less apprehensive about engaging with AAC users if they have these types of devices, simply because they're also aware of these types of devices. They have them themselves, they have their own smartphones, iPads, etc. So that barrier is already broken down for that AAC user, and it's much easier for them to engage with people. Now, to have a look at another case study, which is Noah. Noah is 9 years old. He also has a diagnosis of autism. He engages in echolalia, and he also engages in self-injurious behavior. He's an extremely short attention span. So we commenced using a mobile device and communication app with Noah. Immediately, we saw that he was independently using the camera within the device, and then within a couple of minutes he had commenced using the camera feature within the app. And like again Catherine had said earlier, Noah is very similar to the person she was working with. We actually discovered within the first 10 minutes of Noah using the communication app that Noah could actually spell. Nobody ever knew that Noah could spell. This was absolutely huge for Noah, for the staff that supported him, particularly for his teacher. So as a result of this finding, his academic activities were completely modified, and the intensity increased because he had this ability. So that was huge independence for Noah, and that he was independently managing his vocabulary within minutes. So the next benefit that we see from mobile devices and apps is the decrease in behaviors that challenge. Now, it's very important to be very clear that the reduction in behaviors that challenge are those that are specifically linked to being as a result of difficulties with communication. So not all behaviors that challenge are decreased for a person. It's just those behaviors that are as a result of limited or difficult communication. So the reduction of behaviors that challenge was attributed to the fact that people had instant access to vocabulary. They could instantly communicate their needs, wants, and their causes for concern. The portability and ease of use of the device also was very important for AAC users within this situation, because they weren't limited to just expressing what was difficult for them at that time in a particular room. They could do it absolutely anywhere, whether it was home, school, in the community, in the playground, absolutely anywhere they could express to someone that they were having difficulty. Again, consistency was important here for the reduction of behaviors that challenge. That device was consistent. The response from the device was consistent. Again, humans are very inconsistent and ad hoc in their responses, and our moods impact how we respond to somebody. So the device removes all of that and it supports that person much more. Again, the device was important in relation to becoming a positive reinforcer for people, and they utilized the mobile device as a distractor, as opposed to the fear, of the device being thrown across the room. When someone was engaging in behaviors that challenge, they actually utilized the device as a positive reinforcer. So Billy, like I said, Billy used to hit out at staff and particularly his mom, and he also used to hit Ace. Now, what was interesting about Billy was that as a result of utilizing his mobile device and app, he developed the vocabulary that he needed to indicate when he needed a break. And he also developed the vocabulary to tell people when he was tired or sick. So being tired or sick were two triggers for Billy to engage in behaviors that challenged. So as a result of him independently developing the vocabulary for the break, being tired and being sick, it completely reduced his behaviors that challenged. And he was able to communicate much more effectively with those around him. Everybody around him knew exactly what he needed, be it a break. They completely respected that. And Billy completely reduced his behaviors that challenge. So the fourth benefit that people experience as a result of mobile devices and apps is social inclusion. There is an increase in social inclusion for AAC users. Again, this can be seen throughout the home, school, and community. Again, a lot of this is attributed to the device. There is a coolness factor, even though it's very, very difficult to measure. Given the availability of your iPads, your tablets, and your smartphones, they are seen as being cool among young people and children, therefore reducing the barrier to inclusion for AAC users to their peers. Research has also shown that AAC users, particularly those with autism, use the device as a medium to communicate with their peers. So we all know that peer-to-peer interaction is very difficult for kids, particularly with autism, and that device can be used as a medium to reduce the anxieties around that social engagement. Peer-assisted learning can also increase as a result of utilizing mobile devices and apps. Peer-to-peer communication also increases, again, simply because AAC users are using their device as a medium to facilitate that communication interaction. And the mobile device is also very helpful for AAC users, particularly children when they're engaging with other children, to learn social rules. And the device, again, can be used for that. So we're going to come back to Noah again, and we're going to look at how Noah's social inclusion was increased as a result of his mobile device and app. So Noah was very proud of his device. He was very confident in using his device. He knew it was his, and he did start utilizing his device to engage with his peers. Now, what was very interesting about Noah, 6 weeks into his intervention, he initiated engagement with a peer and assisted that peer to complete a task. For somebody with autism, that is absolutely huge. So many barriers were broken down for Noah as a result of using his device and his app. So there were 4 key elements there. The initiation of the engagement. Number 2 was with a peer. Number 3, he was assisting somebody. And number 4, he was completing a task that he did not have to complete. So that was absolutely tremendous progress for Noah, and it was great to see for him. So the final benefit to utilizing mobile device and app through an evidence-based intervention is the attention span. So attention span was increased for people in relation to academic activities. So again, like Noah, we found out that Noah could spell, and this, as a result, had a knock-on effect in relation to his academic activities. So people would see increase in relation to their spelling, counting, puzzles, completing tabletop activities. This can be attributed to the device itself, and people knowing that they have that device and they can communicate with people around them if needs be, and their anxieties are completely reduced. The motivation to communicate was another aspect that was very prevalent in relation to attention span. AAC users actually had an increased engagement in relation to new vocabulary, and they also had an increased motivation to learn new vocabulary as well through their mobile device and their app. compared to some of the low-tech solutions. This can be attributed obviously to the mobile device again and the platform. It's a very engaging and interactive platform, particularly for a lot of our visual learners. It can be a huge motivator and can be a great learning tool as well. So again, back to Noah, like I said, he had a very short attention span during academic tasks. And as a result of using his mobile device and communication app, we discovered that Noah could spell. So Noah went from sitting for his academic tasks for a maximum of 60 seconds to now sitting for a period of up to 30 minutes. And that is a dramatic increase for Noah. So it just shows the extent of the benefits for AAC users. So some of the top tips for interventions, like I said, evidence-based approach for any intervention with the mobile device and an app is absolutely key. We need to support people in this. Like I said, we need to have a professional suitably qualified to oversee and plan this process. And we need to follow through with the assessment, training and implementation services for that. And that's a continuous loop in itself. Just because somebody is suited to an app right now does not mean that's going to be their forever app. We need to continuously progress with people. We need to revisit those assessments. People change, their strengths change, they progress, and we need to progress those AAC apps to reflect that. And as the person's vocabulary grows and their skills grow, we also need to evaluate that and support the person to continuously develop in relation to the use of their mobile device and their apps. Device availability. So again, looking at what's available to the person in relation to their budget, etc. Looking at your tablets and your iPads and your smartphones that are readily available. They can be great tools for people. Again, remembering they're not the cure. They are simply a tool that, when used effectively, can be absolutely brilliant and so empowering for people with disabilities. Consistency is key when we are implementing an intervention. We also need to give control to the AAC user, and that is a huge risk to the implementation of interventions. People are very apprehensive for many reasons to allow a person with a disability complete control over their device. But the evidence is showing that when we give control, that person can absolutely flourish in relation to their social inclusion, their independence, and also their communication, that they can manage and develop their own vocabulary, their own device. So we need to give people that control, and we need to allow them the opportunity to engage with their device. So again, their device needs to be available to them at all times. It should never ever be locked in a cupboard or in the teacher's desk or up in the cupboard at home, that it's for later. This device, particularly if it's being used for communication, needs to be available to that person at all times, including when they're experiencing difficulties in relation to behaviours that challenge. I know there is a risk that the device may be thrown, etc. However, that person needs their voice and they need to have the vocabulary available to them at all times. So please give control to your AAC users. And in turn, this will allow the AAC user to experience at least one, if not all, of the benefits in relation to the 5 areas. Again, they are communication, independence, social inclusion, behaviours that challenge, and attention span. I cannot say this enough, model. And I'm so glad that Catherine was reiterating that point as well. The more we model to people, the better it is for their development, the quicker they develop, and the more effective an intervention is going to be. And my final point there is to communicate. And what I mean by that is the multidisciplinary team to communicate amongst themselves. So parents, teachers, special needs assistants, speech and language therapists, OT, absolutely everybody that is involved in this person's life and in this person's day-to-day living needs to be communicating, particularly when the implementation is occurring. People need to be on the same page at all times, know exactly what's going on for that person. So please communicate with each other and have those open lines of communication at all time. So
Miriam, sorry to we just want to give you a quick 2-minute warning. We're going to be stopping here in 2 minutes. So it looks like you're getting close, but just wanted to make sure we could get some time for questions and wrap up.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. I know that was slightly rushed due to our technical difficulties, but absolutely no problem. If you have any questions, please let me know. And you can get me on my email there, miriam@aactechconsultancy.com. By all means, drop me an email with any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Miriam, thank you so much for joining us and for your presentation today. Thanks for getting everything in there, even though with the late start, it was fantastic information. There is a little bit of chatter going on in the Slack channel if you want to join that afterwards and maybe answer some questions from your session. So thanks again. It was awesome to have you be with us today.
Great. Thanks a million, Stephen, for the opportunity. It was great.
You bet. Have a great one.
You too.
So just a reminder to everybody in the session here that we will be posting a survey link, which will give you a certificate of attendance, and any questions and follow-up can happen in our Slack channel, track number 2. Thanks, everybody.